They were part of one of the most cherished TV shows in American history, Lassie, 1954 to 1974, a series that captured hearts with stories of loyalty, courage, and family. But while the show portrayed a world of warmth and safety, the real lives of its cast members were often marked by sorrow, struggle, and tragic endings. In this emotional retrospective, we reveal the heartbreaking fates of the actors who brought Lassie to life. Some were taken too soon by illness, others faded into obscurity, and a few faced deep personal demons behind the scenes. These are the Lassie stars who have tragically died, their contributions unforgettable, their stories deeply human. Robert Bray was born on October 23, 1917, and portrayed Corey Stewart in Lassie starting in 1964 at age 47. Corey, a stoic forest ranger, embodied duty and compassion, serving as a moral backbone for the series during its mid-60s run. But behind the heroic facade, Bray's personal life was anything but pristine. After his stint on Lassie, his career stalled, not just due to shifting TV trends but because of his increasing instability on set. He had a reputation for heavy drinking, arriving intoxicated to rehearsals and clashing with directors who challenged his authority. Once hailed for his military discipline as a Marine, he later became notorious for volatile outbursts and a hostile demeanor that alienated co-stars. His personal life was littered with broken relationships and estranged family members. In his final years, he retreated into near obscurity, reportedly battling depression and alcohol-induced health complications. Bray died on March 7, 1983, at age 65 from a heart attack, leaving behind a legacy marred by personal demons. Clayton was born on August 26, 1917, and joined Lassie as Ellen Miller in 1954 at the age of 37. Ellen was the ideal 1950s mother figure, gentle, intelligent, and endlessly supportive. But Clayton's reality was far from wholesome. Behind her composed smile was a woman devastated by personal tragedy, including the death of her daughter, which plunged her into alcoholism. Her once promising Broadway and film career disintegrated as she missed opportunities due to unreliable behavior and public drunkenness. Though she later gave lectures about recovery, those who knew her said she never fully conquered her demons. Her marriages collapsed under the weight of her addiction, and she was often seen wandering Hollywood Boulevard alone, a far cry from her image as America's favorite TV mom. Clayton died of cancer on August 28, 1983, just 2 days after her 66th birthday, her once bright star dimmed by years of quiet suffering. George Cleveland was born on September 17, 1885, and began his role as Gramps in Lassie in 1954 at the age of 69. Gramps was wise, warm, and deeply respected, a moral compass in the series. Yet Cleveland himself was a man of contradictions. Though regarded as professional, he was infamous among the crew for his temper and condescending attitude, especially toward younger cast members. On several occasions, he threatened to walk off set, clashing with producers over script changes and screen time. Cleveland also battled with chronic health issues that made him irritable and withdrawn, reportedly taking amphetamines to push through long shooting days. While he kept a clean public image, there were whispers of an estranged child and a marriage that had quietly dissolved years before Lassie. He died of a heart attack on July 15, 1957, at age 71, just weeks after wrapping a season, still refusing to acknowledge his worsening health. The beloved Gramps died lonely and exhausted, his off-camera legacy far less sunny than his on-screen persona. Tommy Reig was born on December 10, 1941, and took on the role of Jeff Miller in 1954 when he was just 13. As Lassie's first boy companion, Jeff was brave, loyal, and full of heart. But Reig's life after fame unraveled quickly. He resented being typecast and spoke bitterly about losing his childhood to stardom. By his 20s, he'd been arrested for drug possession and was deeply entrenched in the counterculture scene. His attempts at adult acting fizzled, partly due to his disdain for the industry. He admitted to using LSD and marijuana frequently and was even implicated in a DEA investigation, although charges were dropped. Estranged from his family and battling depression, Reig turned to computer programming in a late-life pivot that offered him brief redemption. He became an advocate for former child stars but remained scarred by his past. He died on February 15, 1996, at the age of 54 from heart failure, physically free perhaps, but emotionally never far from the shadow of Lassie. Joey D Vieira was born on April 8, 1944, and stepped into the shoes of Sylvester "Porky" Brockway on Lassie in 1954, just 10 years old. Porky was the comic relief, silly, kind-hearted, always getting into harmless trouble with Jeff and Lassie. But Vieira's real-life path wasn't as lighthearted. After childhood fame faded, he struggled to be taken seriously in Hollywood. Though he reinvented himself as a music producer and director, whispers circulated about his behind-the-scenes demands and ego clashes. In the 1980s, several production staff accused him of manipulating credits and undercutting collaborators to retain creative control. Vieira developed a reputation for being hot-tempered and paranoid, often claiming networks were sabotaging his work. Though he never faced public scandals of abuse or addiction, industry insiders described him as combative and difficult. His relationships with former co-stars became strained, particularly after public comments critiquing the handling of Lassie's legacy. Vieira died on April 7, 2025, just one day before his 81st birthday. George Chandler was born on June 30, 1898, and began playing Uncle Petrie Martin in 1956 at age 58. His character brought homespun wisdom and warmth, serving as the emotional anchor in a changing household. While he seemed grandfatherly on screen, Chandler's real-life temperament often clashed with that image. Despite his position as president of the Screen Actors Guild, insiders whispered about his behind-the-scenes arrogance and tendency to monopolize sets with tiresome tales from his vaudeville days, souring younger co-stars. His career saw a slow decline after Lassie, with parts drying up as his reputation for being difficult took hold. Chandler's private life was marred by a strained marriage and the quiet heartbreak of an estranged daughter who publicly criticized his emotional unavailability. Known to drink alone in his later years, he reportedly showed up intoxicated to at least one industry event in the early 70s. He died on June 10, 1985, aged 86, from complications related to cancer. Andy Clyde, born March 25, 1892, joined Lassie in 1959 as the lovable Cully Wilson at age 67. On screen, he was charming and rustic, spinning tales and exuding country wisdom. Off-screen, however, Clyde's old-school Hollywood sensibilities often turned into full-blown obstinacy. A relic of the silent era, Clyde refused to adapt to modern direction styles, frequently halting rehearsals to argue with younger crew members. He was notorious for reeking of cigarette smoke, puffing through scenes despite complaints from child actors and crew alike. While no public scandals ever touched him, his personal life was shrouded in secrecy. A lifelong heavy smoker and suspected alcoholic, Clyde would vanish from sets midday, only to return reeking of bourbon. His marriage remained under the radar, with whispers that he kept a second home across town for reasons even his agents couldn't explain. Co-stars described him as charming until you disagreed with him. Clyde died on May 18, 1967, at age 75, reportedly of natural causes. Robert Folk, born on May 5, 1908, began portraying Sheriff Miller and Sergeant Hayes in Lassie in 1954 at the age of 46. His characters exuded calm authority and served as moral anchors in the show's pastoral world. Yet, behind the badge and small-town wisdom, Folk was known to exert a suffocating control over his co-stars, often micromanaging scenes and correcting directors, a habit inherited from his architectural perfectionism. Though his career included roles in westerns and sitcoms, his rigidity led to multiple firings and quiet blackballing by certain producers who deemed him unbearable to direct. His marriage to actress Alice Frost reportedly turned toxic, marred by long silences and emotional estrangement, intensified by Folk's obsessive routines and refusal to retire. He also battled chronic insomnia, which worsened his temperament and deepened a reliance on prescription sedatives. Crew members whispered of Folk's tendency to lash out if the slightest detail was off script. He died on February 25, 1989, at the age of 80 from coronary heart disease. Cloris Leachman was born on April 30, 1926, and began her role as Ruth Martin in Lassie in 1957 at age 31. Ruth was maternal, assertive, and the moral backbone of the family unit. Yet Cloris was anything but conventional off-set. Behind her eccentric public persona was a storm of inner chaos. Her marriage to director George England was marked by open infidelity, with both parties engaging in extramarital affairs, Florence reportedly with co-stars and even a much younger grip during the Lassie shoot. Her bold personality frequently led to explosive arguments with directors, and she was once banned from a studio lot after an alleged screaming match with a producer over wardrobe. Her children later shared stories of emotional volatility and prolonged absences, claiming they often felt like props in her erratic life. Although she won awards later in life, she remained a polarizing figure, brilliant, loud, but exhausting. Cloris Leachman died on January 27, 2021, age 94, of natural causes. Jed Allen was born March 1, 1935, and joined Lassie in 1968 at age 33 as Scott Turner and later Jack the tour guide. His characters were energetic and rugged, exuding confidence and charm. Off-camera, however, Jed's life was a tapestry of ambition laced with insecurity. Though adored by fans, he was often passed over for major roles, and this perceived professional stagnation led to frequent tension with producers. Known for his meticulously crafted appearance, he was mocked behind the scenes for his vanity, allegedly spending more time in makeup than his female co-stars. Allen's personal life was rife with turmoil. His marriage deteriorated under the weight of rumors linking him to multiple young actresses, one of whom later claimed in a memoir that he had been emotionally manipulative. Behind the charm was a man deeply dissatisfied with his career, battling anxiety in silence. In his later years, he faded from the spotlight, estranged from several close friends. Jed Allen died on March 9, 2019, aged 84, of natural causes. Florence Lake, born November 27, 1904, began playing the sweet and whimsical Jenny in Lassie in 1954 at the age of 50. Beloved for her warmth and comic timing, she quickly became a fan favorite. But beneath her sunny persona was a woman plagued by profound loneliness and a desperate yearning for a past long gone. A veteran of vaudeville, Lake often spoke of her earlier career with a near-manic nostalgia, to the point of alienating co-stars who found her obsessive ramblings unsettling. Her marriage ended in scandal when her husband left her for a younger actress, leading Lake into a quiet emotional breakdown that was kept hidden from the press. She developed compulsive hoarding behaviors in her later years, refusing to throw away anything from her performing past, including costumes, letters, and even broken props. Neighbors reported a strong odor from her Hollywood bungalow, and friends worried she had become delusional. She died in obscurity on April 11, 1980, at age 75, of undisclosed causes, her passing barely noted in the entertainment world she once cherished. Richard Garland, born July 7, 1927, played Constable Clay Horton in 1954 at the age of 27. On screen, Clay Horton was the kind of lawman any small town would trust, resolute, respectful, and morally clear. Off-screen, Garland's life was anything but stable. Despite a promising start in the 50s, his career nosedived as his addiction to alcohol escalated. He reportedly showed up drunk to auditions, missed entire days of shooting, and was quietly dropped from several contracts without public explanation. Studio executives labeled him unmanageable, and Garland himself admitted in a rare 1966 interview that he had blown every break Hollywood ever gave me. His marriage to actress Beverly Garland was short-lived, marred by allegations of physical abuse and violent outbursts during drunken rages. Friends spoke of his paranoia and isolation, claiming he believed studios were conspiring to blacklist him. His decline was swift and brutal. Richard Garland died on May 24, 1969, from complications related to alcoholism. He was only 41. Carla Belindo was born on November 22, 1925, and joined Lassie in 1958 at age 33 as Miss Hazlitt, the gentle schoolteacher with a maternal calm that brought warmth to the show's dynamic. Yet Belinda, born Sally Bliss, had a far more tumultuous real-life script. Before Lassie, she was ensnared in a secretive and controlling relationship with Howard Hughes, who reportedly kept her under surveillance long after their split. Though she fled the spotlight by the mid-60s, insiders recalled her mental health decline during those years, triggered by studio pressure to undergo cosmetic procedures and maintain a rigid, virginal image. Behind the scenes, She reportedly clashed with Lassie producers over her desire to expand a character beyond quiet smiles. In her personal life, Belindo lived through a scandalous split from a wealthy restaurateur who accused her of abandoning their adopted daughter. Though she turned to philanthropy later in life, whispers of substance dependency during her retreat for Hollywood persisted. She died on April 9, 2024, at the age of 98. Ron Hayes was born on February 26, 1929, and played Garth Holden and Dave in Lassie beginning in 1968 at the age of 39. His characters were stoic, outdoorsy men who served as moral compasses and physical protectors in wilderness episodes, embodying a strong, silent archetype. While Hayes had a promising start, his career stalled after Lassie. He was quietly blacklisted by several studios following a messy fallout over a contract dispute where he accused producers of unsafe working conditions during a dangerous river stunt. His 2 marriages ended in acrimonious divorces, with one ex-wife alleging emotional abuse. Despite being a devoted father, one of his children cut ties with him over an inheritance disagreement. Behind his stern facade, Hayes battled chronic pain and depression, resorting to alcohol and painkillers in his final decade. His reputation in the industry declined further after being involved in a physical altercation at a charity gala in the late 80s. Ron Hayes died on October 1, 2004, at age 75 from a subdural hematoma caused by a fall. Robert Rockwell, born October 15, 1920, portrayed Dean Chalmers and Will Thorne in Lassie beginning in 1959 at the age of 39. On screen, his characters exuded poise and authority, refined, composed, and often embodying the voice of reason. But off-camera, Rockwell was a man trapped by the very dignity he projected. His defining role as the gentle Mr. Boynton on our Miss Brooks typecast him so deeply that producers refused to see him as anything but a soft-spoken academic. This stereotyping frustrated Rockwell, who reportedly turned bitter in later years, accusing casting directors of killing his range. His attempts at more complex dramatic roles were met with rejections or cut short by studio executives who feared audiences wouldn't accept him as anything but harmless. Privately, his marriage endured quiet strain. Colleagues whispered of his intense perfectionism at home, rehearsing lines until midnight, correcting his children's speech with theatrical precision. Robert Rockwell died of cancer on January 25, 2003, in Malibu, at age 82. House Peters Jr., born January 12, 1916, joined Lassie in 1956 as Sheriff Jim Billings at age 40, playing the steady, by-the-book lawman with stoic charm. On screen, he was the face of order. Off-screen, he grappled with a bitter truth. He felt invisible in a town that once applauded his father. His stint as the original Mr. Clean brought him national recognition, but behind the shine was a man battling deep professional envy and chronic resentment. Colleagues noted his mood swings, and whispers circulated of angry outbursts on set, especially when younger actors received more attention. His early retirement from acting at 50 was less a decision and more a quiet ousting. Rumors suggest he was deemed difficult and unreliable due to bouts of drinking and erratic behavior. His autobiography painted a nostalgic picture, omitting the years he reportedly struggled with debt and depression. Though he found solace at Western festivals, House Peters Jr. died of pneumonia on October 1, 2008, aged 92, long after Hollywood had forgotten his name. Bonita Granville, born February 2, 1923, took on the role of Mrs. Brewster and became the show's narrator in 1960 at age 37. As Mrs. Brewster, she brought a serene authority, her voice often wrapping the episodes in moral reflection and polished composure. But off-screen, Bonita's life was far from tranquil. Once a child actress praised for her precocious performances, her transition to adulthood in Hollywood was rocky, marked by stalled projects and rumored casting couch incidents she never spoke publicly about. After marrying oil tycoon Jack Rather, she wielded significant power behind the scenes, but also garnered criticism for using that influence to sabotage careers she deemed too radical or indecent. Known for her ultra-conservative politics, she clashed with fellow actresses and earned a quiet blacklist among liberal Hollywood circles. Insiders whispered about her vindictive streak, allegedly getting a young starlet fired for wearing a revealing costume. Bonita Granville died of cancer on October 11, 1988, at the age of 65. Clyde Howdy, born May 31, 1921, stepped into Lassie in 1964, playing rugged characters like Hank Whitfield and Ivan at age 43. On screen, he was the epitome of strength and grit, the kind of working man who faced nature with muscle and grit. But behind the scenes, Clyde lived on the edge. Known as a heavy smoker and even heavier drinker, he had a reputation for showing up to set hungover, often reeking of alcohol and unbothered by it. Though a close confidant of Jed Allen and often used as a stand-in for Clint Walker, his abrasive attitude led to repeated clashes with directors. Crew members whispered about his wild weekends that frequently ended in bar brawls or disappearances. He was once briefly detained for assault after a drunken fight outside a Burbank tavern, though no charges were filed. Despite his likability in small doses, many producers refused to cast him long-term due to his unpredictable temperament. Clyde Howdy died of lung cancer on October 3, 1969. At just 48 years old, his health long ravaged by his lifestyle. Ray Teal was born on January 12, 1902, and became part of Lassie in 1956 at the age of 54, portraying Jim Teal and Dan Peterson, firm, principled figures who grounded the community and offered quiet authority. Teal had a long Hollywood resume, but his transition into television came after a humiliating string of box office failures in the early 50s, which he blamed on being typecast. He often fought with directors, demanding rewrites and rejecting roles he deemed beneath him. His blunt manner, praised by some, bordered on cruelty to others, especially young co-stars whom he dismissed as amateurs with egos. His marriage collapsed in the mid-60s after accusations of infidelity with a much younger studio assistant. Teal's only son died in a car crash in 1967, plunging him into bitterness and seclusion. Known in music circles as a gifted saxophonist, he refused to perform again after his son's death. Ray Teal died of natural causes on April 2, 1976, at the age of 74. Stuart Randall, born July 24, 1909, joined Lassie in 1959 at age 50, portraying Elle Livermore and Lynn Briggs. These characters were the community's moral backbone, calm, grounded, and quietly wise. But Randall's off-camera persona was a tightly wound contrast. Once a successful bandleader, he entered Hollywood with flair, but his rigid personality and tendency to lecture co-stars on professionalism alienated many. Known to demand silence on set even when cameras weren't rolling, Randall developed a reputation for being cold and condescending. Co-workers described him as a man born in the wrong century, disconnected from the social changes overtaking the industry. Though never caught in scandal, his need for control allegedly extended into his private life. He was rumored to have disowned his daughter for marrying a man of a different race, a story he never denied. He remained distant and formal until the end. Stuart Randall died on June 22, 1988 at 78 from undisclosed causes, taking his secrets with him. Carl Swinson, born July 23, 1908, took on the roles of Anson Booth and Dr. Carl Hansen in 1962 at age 54. His characters were intellectuals, principled men of knowledge and heart. Yet the actor behind those roles carried a colder, more rigid personality. Swinson was obsessively perfectionist, known to rewrite his lines without permission and clash with directors over scientific inaccuracy in scripts. While respected, many found him emotionally distant, even intimidating. On multiple productions, he was accused of bullying younger actors, especially those he deemed unprepared. His demanding nature led to quiet firings and tense sets. Though married, rumors swirled for years about extramarital affairs with radio co-stars during his early days in broadcasting. His dedication to his craft masked a deeply lonely man who, despite being respected, was rarely invited back by the same team twice. Carl Swinson died of a heart attack on October 8, 1978, after collapsing on set during a shoot, working until his final breath. Who is your favorite character in Lassie? How do you feel knowing that the actors have passed away? Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss future videos. Thank you so much.